everyone, we are just a few days away from the biggest floral holiday in the United States, which is Mother's Day. And guess what? We got another market video coming up. I'm super excited for these kind of videos. They're actually my favorite to make. I just don't sell at a market consistently enough for me to make these videos on the regular. But I was asked to guest vend, which I happily said yes, because Mother's Day is, of course, a really, really big day. And it's a day where you can really exceed expectations and sales goals. So we're gonna try to make this my best sales day ever. We are going to try to hit at least $1,500. I'm not sure if that's possible yet based off of the amount of blooms that I have, but we're gonna try to make that work. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about how I'm gonna try to make that happen. But this time of year, it's kind of hard for me to have blooms without having something like a structure in the form of a high tunnel, a greenhouse. It's still possible because I have stuff that has overwintered. It's cold hardy annuals, that kind of stuff. So I've got like Sweet William, I got some anemones, foxglove that are coming in, and I've got some few stems of lilies that are coming in. I mistime the majority of my lilies, but a few will be coming in. And then of course I'll be supplementing stems from my cooperative, where we basically sell to higher end designers. So these are going to be wholesale stems that are a little bit on the higher side. And so that's why I'm also very interested to see how far can I push the pricing at this farmer's market as well as still make a profit. So this should make for a very interesting video. You see these two crates over here? Every day, I literally talk to these two crates as well as cart them in and out of the pole barn. Now, these two crates were planted back in, it was mid-February, and the goal was to get them for Mother's Day. So clearly, I'm only gonna have a couple of stems that are ready for Mother's Day, and I'm only about a week and a half to maybe 2 weeks off for most of these, which is a little bit frustrating, but at least I know that I was in the ballpark and I know what to do differently for next year. The thing about growing lilies and crates indoors is that people are gonna have significantly different times of bloom depending on what their interior environmental conditions look like. So I had actually sold bulbs to someone who already has them ready. So she had consistent temperatures indoors. I was actually growing these in the pole barn as well as bringing them outside. And so at night I bring them in because the pole barn is still a little bit warmer than outside. And that definitely helps expedite the blooming of these. And that's how I'm getting some color on these over here. There's actually quite a bit of lilies out in the field over there. It's kind of hard to tell, but they were all kept outside and they are definitely a little bit further behind than the ones over here. And the dog is still waiting to fetch. Hey guys, it is now Wednesday morning around 9:40 in the morning. I took the day off. We are now picking up flowers from the co-op that I normally sell at. So we are a group of growers who come together every single Wednesday and sell to florists. This is my first time visiting as a buyer and not a seller. It's a crazy week. I think we had about 5 growers who had a lot of product. I'm actually coming a little bit late. Typically, you want to hit the market floor when we open at 8 a.m. for the best selection. I knew that market floor is going to be limited. I had a lot of stuff this morning that I had to get done. So I left a little bit later, but I'm excited to pick up my flowers and I'll show you what they look like. So we just got back from the market. There wasn't that much to show you at the market because things were absolutely cleaned out. I heard there was a line out the door 15 minutes before the market even opened. So it was a really, really big day. And even though we only have 2 buckets worth, this is a lot for me to work with, especially as a supplement. So I've got some beautiful, beautiful ranunculus. This is called Brunera, which is new to me, but this is like a super cute type of filler. We've got mint, more ranunculus. This is vinca, which is a perennial periwinkle, you guys might know it as. Couldn't help myself but buy some Menton tulips. Snapdragons coming in, and saponaria. So this is insane because this is 5 stems of saponaria and it's so bushy. Kind of wish I bought more, but they were out on the market floor. But I think that this is going to really, really help make the bouquets feel more full, give it more texture and air. And yeah, right now I'm gonna put these in my basement. Here's the Sweet William that I harvested yesterday, along with a couple of anemones that are opening up. But I'm gonna get these into the basement, into the cooler. I have to run somewhere else, and then I'm gonna start building bouquets to drop off at the country shop tomorrow. And then I also have some pre-orders that I need to fulfill for pickup on Saturday, and then the rest will go to the farmer's market. So we are now in my basement and it's time for truth. We're going to open the refrigerator where I've been storing the tulip bulbs, and we're going to see the condition that they're in as well as hydrate them and see what we have to work with. All right, Chance is following me down here. But here's the 2 crates that we've had. So one crate is no bulb and the other crate has bulb on. So let's take these out and see what we have to work with. So let's take a look first at the crate with the bulb on. And as you can see, many of these actually look pretty decent. Like this one over here, the bloom head looks really, really good. Stems feel good. They're not even that floppy. Look at that. Like for being in the refrigerator for 4 weeks, that is really, really good. Now, one thing that I am learning is that there is a level of humidity that you do want to maintain with tulips in the refrigerator. And there's like fine balance, right? Because you don't want it to be so humid that there might be mold. We also don't want it to be so dry that it might be desiccating. So let me give you an example of that looks like. In this crate over here, all of these were wrapped in sleeves. I took some out. So let me show you what desiccation looks like. This is a good example over here. So this bloom head over here, if I zoom in, you'll see looks a little bit bumpy and is just basically dehydrated. And a few weeks ago, I had some pre-committed stems that a family member accidentally left outside and then put it back in the fridge. They were left outside probably for like 36, 48 hours in about 67 degrees, and they look like this. And they basically look like vintagey dead flowers. Now compare that to this over here, which is definitely a lot better in terms of the hydration. Like when you feel it, it just feels like that there's a little bit more wetness to it, and this one will hydrate pretty well. So let me zoom in for you guys, and if I show you this side by side, I think it will be a better comparison for you to see the difference. See, the one on the right is definitely more dry. All right, so we're gonna get ahead to processing these, which basically means we're gonna rehydrate them and put the ones that don't look good into the compost bucket. These are double style peony like yellow tulips called yellow margarita. Also look really good. So this is about 3 weeks in the fridge without bulbs. And this is what happens when you don't protect tulips. Put them into a crate and get them smushed. So these are donezo, going in the compost. So I'm actually going to keep this crate back in the fridge. Some of these are opening up a little bit more, so I'm going to process these on Friday. But these I'm going to make for some of the pre-orders that I've had. And I'm actually going to put this on a time lapse so you guys can see this rehydrate. It is now Friday morning, and I'm gonna get ready to hydrate the crate with the bulbs on. So similarly, just a bucket of cold water, nothing else in there. You don't need like floral holding solution or CVB and tablet. Tulips are not fussy at all. They just need water. And so all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna process we'll probably do like 15 at a time, snip the bulb off. I am going to put it into a sleeve and then basically put it into the bucket and let them do their thing with hydrating. I'm only doing 15-ish because I know that's how much that will comfortably fit into a sleeve. And now we're gonna snip all of them at once. This is what we get. And what you wanna do is you wanna strip the lower leaves that are closest to the bottom of the stem off, because first of all, more leaves means more hydration needed for the tulip. But second of all, you don't want the leaves just sitting in the water for an extended period of time. These are really, really sturdy for being in the refrigerator for such a long time without any water. So that's pleasantly surprising because usually they actually flop on me by now, even with bulb on. All right, that's it. So let me show you what they look like in the sleeves. So similar to last time, we've got the same colors, yellow and red, no purples. I did find that the yellows last time hydrated a lot better than the reds. This is the reds over here. Some of them I think got a little too dry. And what ends up happening is they look like, let me give you an example. This is a good example. They end up looking like this, where they're opening up, but the petals, again, feel a little bit vintagey. So I did have some unexpected loss with the reds. I had some that were still completely usable, so I did use them. But like, I can tell that a red like this is going to be completely fine. So we'll see how the reds do. The yellows look so much better. I do know that there is a bit of variety here, because when you look at the research done with tulips, some of them just hold better longer term and some of them don't. But I think for me, the main culprit is the humidity in the refrigerator actually needed to be a little bit higher. I only had one bulb that had a little bit of mold on there. So it tells me that the humidity could have been pushed a little bit higher. But similar to last time, I'm gonna put this on a time lapse and then we'll play with flowers later. So of course, something happened with my camera, so the time lapse didn't take, but this is what they look like about 3 hours later. You can see the yellows really start opening up. So did the reds over here. I'm gonna start building bouquets for the country store, which will be selling at a $20 price point. We're gonna keep them the same so that they don't have to change stuff into the system, and I'll show you what they look like. It is time to now make bouquets. I actually was making some bouquets before and dropped them off at the country store. Today's Friday, it's very rainy here, so I would expect them to be slow going today, but I would potentially refill and stock up more tomorrow. Now, the thing with those country store bouquets is that I use my tulips. For the farmer's market, I will be using ranunculus because I'm gonna be pricing at a higher price point. We're gonna go with a $25 bouquet, and then we're also gonna go with a more premium offering, which is to be determined on the pricing, but we're gonna get started making them and then figure out pricing along the way. So I'm just gonna make bouquets and I'll talk about my rationale along the way. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm starting off by making the more premium bouquets. They're longer stems, there's more focals in here for a wow factor. And what I'm gonna do after is I'm actually gonna count the focals in here, the fillers, and then come to a price point based off of a market and what I would wholesale these for individually. Wow, look at this. This thing's giant. I can get a couple of stems off of this, which is going to be awesome. Let's get one stem off of here. One off of, let's see. Might be able to get one off of, trying to figure out the best way to do this. Here. All right, so there we go. We've got, I actually want to get one off of here too. So now these small ones will be great in a smaller vase. Strip this off. All right, so now we got a big one over here. And I personally find it easier to use something like this to help frame when I am putting in my focal stems. Oh my God, this is more than 10 stems. Thank you, Erica. She gave me a lot more than 10 stems. If I guess there's like 15 in here, so that is really, really nice of her. All right, these are looking good over here. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a quick check-in break to basically see how many stems I have and what price point I'm going for. So I got my laptop out and I have this spreadsheet where I have all of my stems based off of the wholesale cost that I either bought them at or I would sell at. And what I did was I made these deluxe bouquets, and in my head, I'm shooting for a $35 price to charge for these bouquets. What I wanted to do was put it back into my calculator to make sure that my gut matched what the math says. And so what I'm seeing is that out of the 5 bouquets, the range is anywhere from $31.95 all the way up to $39.71. So I know that I'm in the right ballpark. I'm around that $35 range, and not every single bouquet is going to land at that $35 mark, which is fine. It's like you win some and you lose some in this case, but it tells me that from a gut perspective, I think that I can sell these at $35, which is a 2.25 times markup. Now, on Mother's Day, I would argue that some people mark up even more, but this is where it's getting to know your market and what that market could bear. I regularly, when I sell at this farmer's market, it's hard for me to go above like $20, $25. I mean, it's happened, but the volume goes down. So on Mother's Day, I'm expecting that people are going to be willing to spend a little bit extra. But I also know that there was a grower before who grows specialty flowers, and she was trying to price her flowers at the price point that she deserved. So typically she was trying to sell $35 plus bouquets, and she did not do well at this farmer's market, which is why she opted not to sell at that farmer's market. And then the year after, I actually came in. I kind of came to this similar conclusion where, you know, for me, I feel like I can actually fetch this higher wholesale point, but on a retail side, I fetch a little bit lower than what I would like. So Lenny Larkin actually talked about this when she moved from Sonoma County, California to Portland, Oregon, how in Sonoma she felt that wholesale she couldn't sell for very much because there's a lot of big flower farm production out there. But on the retail side, she could fetch a little bit higher because it was affluent. Now, when she moved up to Portland, Oregon, it flip-flopped, meaning the delta, the difference between what you could buy wholesale and what you could sell for shrunk. And so wholesale prices were higher for her, and then retail prices were lower. So in this case, it makes more sense for her to consider wholesale. And it's also similar for me too. I find that the gap between what I can charge on the upper end of wholesale because of the customer base who we sell to at our cooperative is on the higher end. But my retail outlets currently at this farmer's market does not command that extra premium that I would like for retail. And that's why typically I like to sell wholesale, because it's just a lot easier and I don't have to play around with making bouquets. But in this situation, I feel like I'm getting somewhat of an adequate markup. I am making bouquets that I probably would be selling for $25 max at this farmer's market on a normal day. So with all that done, I am now going to start making $25 bouquets, and we're going to do the same math again. One other thing that I want to test out at this market, because it's Mother's Day, is have a very premium offering in a vase. And so ideally this is priced at around $50. So $15 for the range and ready to go-ness, plus $35 worth of product. So here's my vase, and let's start building it. Typically the perceived value of a vase arrangement goes up the higher up you're able to build it. So ideally I would have something like chicken wire to help support this, but I don't right now. So we're going to be using filler to hopefully get the height up. I want the beefiest focals in here. Hey everyone, it is Saturday morning, and I realized I never talked about the pricing of the $25 bouquets and what they came out to. So I put it was 7 bouquets that I made at that $25 price range into my spreadsheet, and based off of the number of stems that I had and how much they would command wholesale, I ended up with around anywhere from $24.75 to $29.03. And what that means is that I'm a little bit on the higher end, so I might have like overstuffed by a stem or two, but at the end of the day, it's really coming out to a 2 times markup for these $25 bouquets, which I'm totally okay with. One of my objectives at this farmer's market is to also get my name out, since we are in a newer location. I don't think I mentioned that. The farmer's market that I was selling at before is basically transplanting itself to another town. So we are going to get other kinds of customers. And one of my goals is to have a little bit more at the $25 price point to make it feel more accessible, have my card on there, get some email addresses, and hopefully also generate some awareness there. Now, if you're interested in understanding all of the stems that I have, including the pricing wholesale that I would normally sell these for, I have that on my Patreon, which is linked below. So for $5 a month, not only do you get to support me in making these kind of videos, but I also offer extra content that complements videos like this, as well as other related topics on marketing, sales, profitability, and really anything related to the business side of flower farming. All right, so with that done, I have to crank out more bouquets. I'm basically about halfway through making bouquets. All the people who had to pick up pre-orders already picked up. I want to make some more $35 bouquets as well as $25 bouquets. And then we've also got to restock the country store. So let's get going. One thing I do want to make sure I get a chance to talk about is how I am wrapping these bouquets, and it looks a bit different than how I normally wrap. So normally I use these pre-fold sleeves, and for the most part they work fine, but I find that they typically don't do a good job of showcasing all of the focals and almost diminish the stopping power of a bouquet. And sometimes it depends on the size sleeve that you have. If you've bought pre-made sleeves, you'll know that it's not one size fits all, which is a little bit frustrating. But at our cooperative, when we sell wholesale, we always use sleeves, so that's why I have them on hand. But this time around, I wanted to make these bouquets feel a little bit more special and have a little bit more value addness to them. And so this is where tissue paper comes into play. I was futzing around, playing around, and found this really easy way of wrapping. So let me show you what I do. I take a piece of craft paper. You can get these pre-cut. You can get these in a roll, and it's about 18 by 18 inches. And what I do is I fold an imperfect triangle, meaning I'm not trying to touch the two edges together. I'm like folding it so that they're slightly offset from each other. Then what I do is I take tissue paper, which is also 18 by 18, and now I fold this one in half. When I fold it in half, I put it right on top of the craft paper I just had. So I'm putting a rectangle on top of an imperfect triangle. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay my bouquet on top. Here it is, on top over here. And then what I do is I just fold, literally just fold it over. And then my stapler comes in. And ideally you have one of those longer staplers, but I don't, it's still fine. And then this is what it looks like. So let me show you up close. So just having this little like V area, I feel exposes the blooms and just makes it look more inviting and more packaged and polished than having a pre-made sleeve. And this also contributes to why this is a $35 bouquet, because obviously it takes extra time to wrap the tissue paper. The tissue paper also costs money, right? It's not free. So all of this comes together, and then I put a business card on here so that way people know who it's from. So I'm gonna wrap the rest of these. Let's do it again. So, whoops, again, imperfect triangle here. Put a piece of tissue paper. Already comes basically pre-fold. Just lay it on top. Grab my bouquet. Let's lay this part over here. And literally just fold it like that. Stapler comes through. One staple, and we're done. So this is the one that I just folded, and it was pretty quick. Pretty quick for the result that you get. So even though it is obviously more efficient to do something like an assembly line where you have everything wrapped at the same time, because I'm doing different price points, I want to make sure that I have all the ones that are $35 done, and then I move on to the $25 bouquets. And then therefore I also have buckets that are dedicated to those price points that are done. All right, so let's see if we can make the $25 one right now. Yellow ones. Now, one thing that was unexpected as someone who's grown a lot of tulips and has held them in storage is the fact that my red ones did not hydrate well. My yellow ones did really well. But yellow is always like a harder color to pair. So it is what it is, but at least I got usable stems out of the yellow. So we're gonna make some $25 bouquets out of the yellows. It's now Saturday afternoon. It's been a little bit challenging with a sick kid, but it is what it is. Going out for our final harvest right now. I still have a few stems of filler left. I am nowhere near close to that $1,500 mark when I look at all of the bouquets I have. I have around a $1,000 potential, but one thing that I do want to do is I want to sell some lily bulbs. So this is what those lily bulbs look like. I'm actually getting into the pole barn right now. So this is where we keep a lot of the stuff, especially as it pertains to shipping over here. But this is what the lily bulbs look like. So we've got a crate of just 12 bags. There's a dozen in here, and it's marketed as a mix of sorbet-like colors. So there's 3 varieties in here, and it's like very pink, orange, and there's a little bit of white in here. But yeah, it's like super summer fun colors. And then on the back, I have a little postcard that talks about planting care instructions. So we'll see how these do. Not everyone likes fresh cut flowers. Some people really like gardening, so I'm hoping that this will also appeal to that customer base. So we're going outside, and here are the 2 lily crates. I really only got, I think it was 4, maybe 5 stems out of these, which is a bit disappointing, but it is what it is. What's more disappointing is you'll see when I go out, I'll show you some stuff that's just like nearly ready, but not there. Actually, this one is pretty close, so I'm gonna cut this one. This one will color up more and open in the customer's house. Yeah, Chance, go fetch. So let me show you some of the other stuff that's just almost there, but not quite ready. My foxglove patch. There's buds, but not quite ready yet. I could still harvest this. Like this one is fine, but there's only 1 bloom on here. So I don't know, we'll see if I need these. Otherwise I'll just let them go and then sell them wholesale. But this would have been nice if they were ready a day earlier. So Sweet William is reliable and a workhorse, but a pain to harvest. So I would love to know if you have a way of harvesting more quickly, because you can't just strip the leaves like you would in a normal stem. Like if I try to do that, like the leaves don't really go anywhere. So I want to know if you have a faster time harvesting. And now we're getting to the point where the Sweet William are being harvested with not all of the florets open, which is fine, because in a post-harvest book that I have, it actually says you should be harvesting Sweet William when about 20% of these small flowers are open. So they will continue to open up, and they have a fantastic vase life, which actually makes them or which gives me a little bit more confidence when I put them into bouquets, because I feel like I know that some of the flowers are definitely going to last a long time. Obviously, these are not focals, these are complementary, but I had quite a bit of CSA customers last year who actually specifically talked to me about the Sweet William and how much they loved how long the Sweet William lasted. I'm finding that colors like this are not really great for pairing. It's just a little bit too dark and moody. This color is actually really great. It is complementary to a lot of other colors that I have. And so even though it was so nice to have this patch just basically perennialize and come back, I will be ripping it out and planting colors that are more in line with this and being more selective about the colors than planting a mix. All right, so let's go over here. But overall, still pretty happy with this. These stems are actually a little bit shorter. They just look longer. This is also another great color. This is like almost like a fuchsia pink. Kind of hard to see. But I really like this color too. And I am not a personal fan of the bicolors, but a lot of people are. The problem with the bicolor one is that the stems are actually a little bit short, at least for me. And I find that even though this white lavender is really nice, it always comes late. So even though I love to have it for Mother's Day, I know that if I plant it, I may not really get enough for Mother's Day. So this would be really good wholesale, but I would not be able to rely on it for an early May floral holiday. All right, I think that's it over here. We're gonna go on to that patch over there. Let's see if I can move my camera here. Actually, we're gonna cut this one here too. One of the best investments we ever made was a really, really good coffee machine. And I'm talking about this because it really aligns to my philosophy in terms of spending, both personally and on the business side, which is you spend a lot on the things that you care a lot about and you mercilessly cut back on other stuff. So Eric had wanted a nicer car and he also wanted an espresso machine. I said, well, we have the same amount of money in the pie. Would you rather have a nice coffee machine with a not so good car, or a really nice car, no coffee machine? And so he actually decided he wanted a coffee machine. Eric loves cars, so that was really surprising. And that's how I'm driving a CR-V right now. But anyway, last night was brutal. She's not even a baby anymore. She's over a year old, but I keep on calling her a baby. So my daughter had a 103 fever that she just could not break. And so luckily I remembered to cycle Tylenol and Motrin and it worked, but did not get a lot of sleep. So today is going to be a bit of a marathon, and ironic that it ends up on Mother's Day because I feel like it's a reminder of all the stuff that moms go through. But I'm gonna get ready, having my coffee, gonna have some breakfast, and then we're gonna load up and go to the market. So we have less flowers than I anticipated, and I am honestly nervous about this price point, but we'll see what happens. You can tell it's a bit of a rainy day. It's gloomy, New Market area. So we'll see what the turnout looks like. I heard last week was also rainy, but the turnout was decent. So fingers crossed that we sell out. It is now 11:30. It got really cold. I had to put on Eric's jacket. It's raining, but we are sold out. So sigh of relief. So we are now back from the farmer's market, and I was able to input a lot of the numbers into my spreadsheet at the farmer's market since I had a lot of time left over. Now, before I get started, I just want to say that there was a moment last night where I didn't know if I was actually going to go to the market, because when my kid was unable to break her fever, I was like, should I take her to the ER? So I was saying in my head, if she didn't break out of the 103 fever after cycling between ibuprofen and acetaminophen at like 3, 4 a.m., I would take her to the hospital and ultimately skip the market. But luckily, it didn't come to that. And luckily, I ended up having a great day at the market. I had a sellout. So what I want to talk about here is two things. I want to talk about the numbers, but I also want to talk about this getting over my fear of a higher price point and ultimately what that meant. So I sold $900 worth of flowers today. That excludes lily bulb sales as well as shampoo bar sales. And that is the most I've ever sold at a market. And that is obviously with flowers that I grew as well as flowers that I brought in. Do I wish I brought a little bit more flowers? Obviously, yes, because I sold out by 11:30 and I had a bunch of people coming to me afterwards for flowers, but I'm still pretty happy with the result. Now let's talk about how I got to that $900 number, because all of you guys are probably aware I've been big fans of You Can't Eat the Grass. And when Serena did markets, she would say 1K or bust. And I remember that being just like such a big number. I mean, $1,000 worth of flowers is a lot. For anyone who has sold $1,000 worth of flowers, like, you know how much time and effort that takes. So when you watched Serena's videos, you saw that they were selling $20 bouquets, and obviously to sell $20 bouquets to get to $1,000, you have to bring 50 bouquets. 50 bouquets doesn't sound like a lot until you start making them. Like 50 bouquets is a lot of bouquets. For the people out there who can consistently crank out like 100 plus bouquets, like power to you, because literally last night I said to my husband, I was like, I feel so validated for not wanting to sign up for the farmer's market and not wanting to go down the retail route, because I want to shoot myself. Like, I am not good at making bouquets, nor do I honestly really enjoy it. It's just, I like the creative piece of it and I do like the end result, but I'm not a big fan of making bouquets. Like, this is something that I totally did not anticipate when I started flower farming. In fact, I thought that'd be my favorite. But I say this because it's like, I don't have enough flowers to make 50 bouquets at the $20 price point. And I kind of want to have my cake and eat it too, because I said before, I wanted to attract more people. That's why I had a $25 price point. But I also wanted to push the limits to see how much I could fetch for Mother's Day. So that's why it was really interesting for me to observe how do people interact between the $25 and the $35 price point, and even the $50 vase arrangement. So let's get the $50 vase arrangement out of the way. I sold one of them, and I sold that to a man who was in a hurry, who was like, I need something like wow, and that is it, and I'll pick up a vase. The second vase, I ended up keeping the vase and repackaging those flowers into a $35 bunch, because it was $35 worth of flowers in what I valued $15 vase. So that sold as a $35 arrangement. And what was really interesting to me was seeing people come up and looking at the two buckets and clearly seeing that the $35 bouquets obviously looked better. They had a little bit more variety. They had more ranunculus in there. For the lily stems that I had, they were only in the $35 bunches. That definitely persuaded some people to go for $35 bunch. But it was this feeling of, yeah, like, I'm worth $35. I'm going to splurge on that. And that's not something that I see in the summer. So there were moms who bought for themselves and they were like, yeah, like, I'm going to buy myself a $35 bouquet. So I think just psychologically, that was like very interesting for me to see.
The $25 mark was really appealing to people who had to buy multiple bouquets. It goes without saying that most people will have multiple moms to give to, either a mother-in-law, their own mother, perhaps a grandmother, right? Like there's a lot of people who you could gift to. So it's a day where people can buy multiples. And that is a reason why people don't increase their prices. But I'll also say that like people bought $25 bunches that I normally would have sold for 20 and they bought multiples of them because they had to gift multiples. Now, if I only had a $35 bouquet option, I don't think those people would have bought two. I don't even know if they would have bought from me. The point is that I had a price point that appealed to people who were gifting multiples or people who just couldn't spend $35. And I had a $35 option for people who wanted to indulge a little bit more. So I don't think that those are two price points that I would have consistently if I was vending at this farmer's market throughout the season. But it now makes me feel a lot more confident that during holidays, I can definitely push a more premium price point because there is this mentality of, yeah, it's a special occasion and I deserve to be able to spend a little bit more. So ultimately, I end up selling 15 of the $25 bouquets, 10 of the $35 bouquets. I also had a couple of posies. These were really, really small bouquets. I literally harvested every single stem I could. I had all these Sweet Williams. You guys saw stems were a little bit tiny, and I put like maybe like 8 in a bunch with a double tulip, and I sold that for $12. I would never have been able to mentally get over the fact that that could fetch $12. I think in the past I would have sold something like that for $7. So again, I really stepped out of my comfort zone. I know I talk a lot about pricing and theory, and I just want to say that it takes balls to execute. Like I was talking to a couple of the growers at my cooperatives, and these are growers who are experienced. They grow tons of amazing flowers. They sell a lot of flowers, and they tell me that pricing is like the hardest thing ever. And it's one of the reasons why we love wholesale, because pricing is so straightforward. And so 2 nights before Mother's Day, like we're talking about what our price points are. So I just want to say that pricing is difficult, and having what you consider to be your premium price point might look different for me versus you. All right, so now that we've talked about this, you basically getting to the $1,000 mark or close to the $1,000 mark with less than 50 bouquets. I mean, I got there with basically about 27 bouquets, we'll call it, or 28 bouquets, including the $50 arrangement. That tells me that during the holidays, like I can easily probably get to $1,500, if not $2,000, if I adequately plan for it. So cost of goods sold. I spent about just under $300 bringing in flowers to supplement my flowers. I do think that if I had more tulips that successfully rehydrated, I probably could have gotten up to that $1,200 mark, especially if I had a little bit more filler. So cost of goods sold, I'm going to keep it at $300 and just say that all of the stuff that I made at the country store in terms of profit and sales goes into all of the time that was spent preparing for Mother's Day. And it took a lot of time because I had to go pick up the flowers. I took a day off work. I had to prepare for the flowers. I had to drive back and forth to the country store. I had to go to the farmer's market, man it. So it's like a good 10 hours just to prepare for this day. So I'm going to keep it at $300 and not count all of the money that I made from the country store. Labor at the farmer's market, we're going to call it about $100 because basically I'm getting there early, setting up all that stuff. So it's 5 hours worth at $20 an hour. There's some other costs here, but ultimately I'm getting down to a $440 profit here. $440 worth of profit off of $900 is really, like, it's fine. It's better than most markets that I do. But when I do a market, I'm not actually thinking about what is the profit I get from that market. I am actually thinking about other things like lead generation, getting my name out. It was really encouraging to see people stop by because I brought them out to the market, as well as people who stopped by afterwards when I was sold out to say, hey, I've been following you on Instagram for a long time. I've been following your tulip journey. It's awesome. So when I think about what I am trying to do at these farmers markets, I'm trying to obviously cast the net of exposure, but I'm also trying to, in advance, sell my winter tulips. So for every person who comes by who's willing to have a conversation, I tell them my main crop is winter tulips. I ask them, are you local? Yeah, I live right around the corner. Oh, in the winter, we actually have a winter subscription. We do delivery, right? So I'm trying to get onto the radar that in the time of year where people most want flowers, I'm your girl, right? Like I talked about in a community post where I basically want to specialize being known as tulip girl in the winter. And this is my time right now to make sure I'm doing the marketing because next year I'm going to really increase the amount of tulips I'm growing for the winter. And I want to make sure that I am doing my homework of creating a market for that. So I think about that, and I also got a few email addresses, and it's also a really good way for me to interact with customers and again, observe how people are interacting with different price points. So the amount of value I get out of a market is worth way more than the true profit that I get out of a market. And this is how I also want you guys to think about markets. Like, yes, they are a sales outlet, they are a reliable venue for you to sell flowers. But for the most part, unless if you've been at a market for years, you've really built up a customer base, and you have a plethora of flowers, I'm going to argue that most people are actually not making as much money as they think off of a farmer's market. So you've got to think about ways to really make that profitable for you in a way that's not just how much cash am I getting out of this market. But again, like having $900 in the bank account for cash flow is also really, really nice. So the end of the day, I'm pretty happy with where I landed with Mother's Day. I said earlier in the video that Mother's Day is not a holiday I normally try to hit. Next year, I'm going to try to hit it. And I'm going to try to really heavy up on anemones as well as Sweet William. And of course, I expect to still need to supplement stems, but hopefully to a lesser degree. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is just this evolution of what makes a profitable bouquet thought process in my head. And that's going to be a part 2 because I feel like that through this Mother's Day experience and just general observations at my co-op, this warrants a much longer discussion. Most of you guys, if you're still here, I just want to say that you're a minority of people. By now, most viewers would have already dropped off. So I think it deserves its own video to talk about. But I think that when we think about what makes a profitable bouquet, we're often thinking about how do we cut down time in terms of making a bouquet, which is obviously a place where we need to focus on, but that's not the only place where we should be thinking about. And I've come to this conclusion that after a couple of years of growing, I've been thinking about it a little bit the wrong way, and I want to talk about that thought process. So more to come on that. Happy Mother's Day to everyone out there. And if you want to see more market videos, here's a playlist of all the other markets that I've done. There's some good gems in there around pricing, sales, strategy, messaging, even like how I set up all that stuff. So that's in a playlist over here, and I'll see you in the next video.